It
Yeah,
was a web novel, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I just control F'd semen to get to the good part.
this was written by the guy.
I could feel my hot sperm gushing deep into Asuna as she trembled in yet another client. Of course, he makes her come again.
Yeah.
This is yet another.
Oh, yeah.
2 years worth of semen made a glopping noise as it flowed
Bloodnose.
endlessly.
How much would you
into
charge
Asuna.
to read an audiobook of SAO?
Nothing. I do that for free.
I sacrificed all of the sexual energy in Search of Lincoln and all boys around that
As
age
long
to
as I could
immerse
do
myself
silly
into
voices for all
games.
of them and make Kitty
Yeah.
Toad use Yiddish terms.
He used all of his nut in order to become the strongest gamer in the
And
world.
as long as I can read Asuna in my Harvey Firestein voice. Asuna plopped down naked on the sofa and glared defiantly at me. "Kirito, hurry up and take your clothes off," she said in an authoritative tone. What?
No,
We're
not
continuing?
just your finger.
It would be stupid if we stopped here. I hurriedly complied. Opening the window indicated by Asuna, I toggled off the option buried deep within the menu. Because of the hurried start, there was no romantic mood to speak of. Sitting on the bed, which was slightly too small for the two of us, we slowly did as much as the system would allow. The dim blue moonlight filtered through the window, casting complex shadows on the bed. Since Salemburg has no marketplace, the townspeople disappear at night. The only thing I could hear was the faint whispering of the lake and my alarm-like heartbeat, which seemed to echo around the room. By this time, Asuna and I had removed all our clothing. We had been kneeling on the bed in front of one another for about 2.5 minutes. I couldn't read Asuna's expression as she balled up her fists on her knees and looked down. I thought that I should probably be the one to take the first action in the situation, but not being able to predict the outcomes of any of my choices, I sat in petrified silence. I considered what would happen if I were to yell out, "Sorry," and re-equipped minimal clothing at Mach speed before escaping the room. Would she say, "I guess it can't be helped," and forgive me when we meet again tomorrow? There's no way she would.
Why does she sound like Joey Wheeler?
Remembering back to the distant past. I was only 14 the first time I ever logged into SAO. The winter of 8th grade. I don't really want to recall how I was.
More of an impression of Vice Chancellor Bonaparte's impression of how
But I sacrificed all of the sexual energy that starts to awaken in all boys around that age in order to immerse myself in the games. As a result, I've never been in a situation where I would be alone with a girl in her room. Obviously, I'd also never been naked with a girl before. To tell the truth, I would have liked for Asuna, who I thought was probably a few years older than me and thus had expertise in the area, to take the lead. However, it seemed that everyone in SAO, including her, viewed me as being older than I really was. Since
wow, older than a 15-year-old.
Denied any of it. There's no way I could really say to her in the situation, "Sorry, but I'm actually only for the..." I strengthened my resolve. Even if I didn't have the knowledge or experience, I had never loved or had never felt such intense feelings for someone as I have for Asuna. Ever since SAO started, there were numerous times when I was in a situation where I told myself, "You can't run away from here no matter what." But here I had to muster up greater willpower than that as I extended my right hand and moved my body forward. My fingertip softly touched the gentle curve that was Asuna's shoulder. Her body quivered sharply. I slowly traced the path from the line of her collarbone to the nape of her neck. Asuna let out a soft moan as her eyes closed. The blood rushed to her cheeks and her eyebrows furrowed. For some time, I watched Asuna's responses in secret delight as I touched her all over the place. Slightly excited by her reactions, I went a bit overboard.
Shit.
As I kept my fingertip at a point where I was just barely touching her and continued to slowly glide smoothly across her skin. I crawled down her arms, which were firmly holding both breasts, circled around her stomach, and reversed direction back up her arms again.
What is he doing? Is this like moving his finger around?
Asuna's body would shake and a soft moan would leak out.
What?
After caressing her entire body, I put my right hand's finger under her small chin and lifted her head up. With my left index finger, I diligently traced her wet, shining, cherry-colored lips. "No, not just your finger." A softly Blushing, Asuna opened her eyes and looked at me pleadingly. Kiss me. ... Silently moved my face closer. Asuna's lips parted slightly as if I could not wait any longer, but instead of fastening our lips together, I softly poked her lower
What
lip.
is going on here?
As if seeking me out, Asuna stuck out her tongue, but I restrained myself and moved to avoid her before... There's something fucked up there. Softly touching her with the tip of my tongue. Asuna let out an irritated sound of both anticipation and need as I abruptly plunged my tongue into her mouth. I violently swished my tongue around. That sounds good.
Like a shark thrashing.
Like a washing machine.
The tactile senses in SAR, just like the sense of taste, pre-programmed and activated in accordance to the situation. When you consider this, then the only conclusion that one can draw is that the feeling of a deep kiss must have been programmed in. Well, it's not like I ever really experienced that in real life, but... An indescribably bewitching feeling assaulted my nerves. My tongue entwined Asuna's as I forcefully sucked on it, and I felt all the strength go out of her body. Her eyes were moist and dim as she was breathing erratically, and I took my tongue out of her mouth and then proceeded to lick down her neck, behind her ear, and to the hollow of her collarbone. When I eventually reached the soft valleys that were the top of her breasts, which had been hidden up until now, her whole body leapt and twitched, her arms gripping tighter together as she shook her head from side to side. Asuna,
is she having a panic
move
attack?
your arms. But I want to see your breasts, Asuna. I caught her wrists, which were crossed together, and pulled them apart as I slowly licked and sucked my way toward the peak of the white breast that was gradually being revealed. No! Asuna's arms were finally at her side, and her twin peaks were revealed to my eyes. The swells, which were usually hidden by the loose-fitting knight's clothing and the breastplate, were bigger than I had imagined, fully protruding sharply forward.
Detail here?
At the tips were a pair of nipples which were difficult to distinguish from the surrounding area, standing impertinently in a cone-shaped form. Regrettably, the entire room was currently bathed in the blue glow of the moonlight, and Asuna, turn on the light. What? No, don't! Having accepted the rejection of my request, I sucked her left nipple into my mouth. Ignoring the shrill voice that Asuna let out at the sudden attack, I chewed on the hard nub with my lips. My tongue rolled around the stiff tip. Okay. No! I firmly held Asuna's right hand that tried to push me away as she cried out while her body convulsed and moved my left hand to the other breast. I squeezed the
Why is it so detailed?
My fingers and then gently used the nail of my index finger to stimulate the tip of her nipple.
Just get anime.
As I tortured both breasts.
Tortured.
Convulsions and sweet cries rose in intensity. Going a bit overboard, I bit down on the protruding object in my mouth and somewhat violently began to chew on it, while at the same time the thumb and index finger of my left hand painfully twisted the other nipple. Oh, please, for the love of God, stop! Asuna's body suddenly stiffened. Her arms, which now encircled the back of my head, tightened their grip. No, I'm just... She was unable to speak after that, letting out a hoarse, high-pitched cry from the depths of her throat. Asuna twitched and her body jumped once before collapsing against me. She was still breathing heavily, her body intermittently convulsed slightly. Asuna, just now. No, it's so embarrassing. I never had anything happen like that. Happen until now. Until now? Asuna ducked her body and looked down in an embarrassed mind. It's nothing. It's nothing at all. Tell me. I moved my left hand over Asuna's left breast as she leaned against me and grasped her nipple before pulling on. No, stop, please, no more.
No more with the breasts.
What do you mean until now? Asuna spoke haltingly in a crying voice that was once again mixed with sweet moan. About the ethic code off? I guess after I learned about it, I did it a couple of times alone. What did you do? I was thinking about Kirito, who played with my breasts and down below. Talking about her own fantasies seemed to have increased Asuna's masochistic side. Her breathing was gradually becoming ragged as she clung to me. Down below? Like, around here? I gently moved the hand that had been abusing her breast downward. I stroked her tense stomach, then ever so slowly moved in that direction. I went over the slight swell of her abdomen, and when my fingertips reached the entrance of the 2 mounds, Asuna gasped as her body shook. No! I used the index finger and the middle of my left hand to stimulate the area around her vagina, while taking care not to touch the center. I enjoyed the sensation of squeezing the 2 mounds again together and then pulling them apart.
Okay. Very puffed.
Asuna knelt down, putting both of her arms around me, and moaned while burying her face in my neck as my fingers moved about, causing her body to jump and twitch. There. No. But that voice gradually became hoarse as she shook her head and wiggled her whole body. That can't, no. Thinking that I was teasing her too much, I gradually moved my middle finger towards the center. As Athena let out a remarkable cry. My finger was enveloped in a slimy sensation. That place was seemingly endless, so hot and moist and indescribably soft that I voluntarily stirred it with 2 fingers. No! Asuna cried out, and her body started to shake and jump. Without regard for that, I needed the little knob that was peeking out from the top. Who just jumped in here? Should I stop?
No,
it's
okay. All right, I will continue. So we were at the little knob that was peeking out from the top, lit with my thumb while spreading it open with the 2 fingers. It appeared that, It appeared that Asuna could no longer speak as she dug her nails into my back and arched her back as far as she could. No, I can't take it no more. I'm feeling verklempt. But in another sense, I was also at my limit. I wanted to see every single part of Asuna so badly that I pushed her down onto the bed and grabbed her legs, spreading them apart. What?
Oh, were you watching it somewhere?
Asuna came out of a hazy state and bucked her body to escape as she realized that she was in an extremely embarrassing position, but that there was no way I was going to loosen my grip now. Kirito, don't look so closely. Asuna, I raised my head and looked steadily into Asuna's eyes. Should we turn on the light? No! Asuna forcefully rejected my suggestion as she shook her crimson red face. Giving up, I devoted myself to examining Asuna's hidden place. The soft and fluffy pubes. Really? Pubes? Were white and...
That's the sexiest word you could think of.
Yeah, right. The soft and fluffy pubes were white and smooth without a single hair growing there. Wait, what? The soft and fluffy pubes were white and smooth without a single hair. Okay. All right. This was to say, rather than a preference...
This is the explanation I need.
Did we lose Bennett? I'm sorry.
I forgot about this description.
This was to say, rather than a preference of the developers, a limitation of the system itself. Hair-type objects of the extremely heavy category. As a result, aside from the hair...
SOA is a good anime, right?
On the heads and beards, there was absolutely no hair anywhere on the bodies of the SAO players.
It's like if Nathan For You funded an anime.
In between the 2 smooth mounds was a single slit, and
it's just my takeaway here.
Light-colored flows. From time to time, a clear fluid dripped out and flowed towards Asuna's anus. Again, another very sexy word. Before turning into beads of light and disappearing. Whether it was from embarrassment or loss of strength, Asuna had stopped struggling. So I took I'm right foot and slowly spread the slit open.
Wait, where is hands? I'm very confused.
They were holding her legs open.
On her head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Asuna's eyes turned vacant as she moaned softly. Inside the slit, compared to the information
her eyes were really dim
from the net in the real world, was an unusually simple design, with what I thought was
an unusually simple
membrane spreading smoothly on the inside and bottom. The vaginal opening, which tirelessly produced clear fluid, was quietly throbbing. and in the upper part, where the
my
slit closed together with a little protrusion, peeked its head up. Within SAO, the male players must have at least once or twice racked their brains in wondering what that part of the female players looked like. But I was experiencing a certain kind of emotion, just having discovered the answer to this question.
It's like having Nathan narrate this shit to you.
Of course, in my own lower half, there was also a certain
Nathan
thing
who?
which, having swelled to its limits, which
Nathan
very
who?
impressive limits, was seeking release. But this was the first time since I had entered SAO that it had become like this. There was a somewhat interesting story concerning all of this.
Oh my
I
god!
apologize
The
for
first time I had a boner.
digressing, but when SAO was under development, the Argas company had an internal
Why
closed
is this
alpha
in the middle of
test
this
during
chapter?
which time they reasoned that since the players would have no
Holy
use for
shit.
genitals, it wouldn't be necessary to objectify it. However, in reality, they found that most of the male testers would experience a certain amount of severe anxiety. Even so, there was no problem when playing for several hours. When they concluded consecutive tests over a 48-hour period, they found that most of the male testers who attended this trial period were unable to stand and not having their genitals and gave up. So it was from the beta testing phase that the genital
this need
parts
to be
were
explained?
implemented out of a
I
sense of
don't know,
necessity.
man.
It seems that this was also part of the reason why SAO players were not
Like,
allowed.
besides the necessity, it seems like it breaks the flow.
I have some cringy Japanese shit.
Even if you had your
Cringier
genital
than this.
parts, the question that I had prior to the official start of the game, meaning before the incident, was whether or not there would be anxiety over the lack of proper function. I myself had agonized repeatedly on multiple occasions over the inability to release my pent-up energy, which, very voluminous. But now I saw that
2
if the
years.
ethics code or whatever was disabled, then functionality, probably even ejaculation,
Oh my
was
fucking
possible.
god!
While feeling like I had missed out on a lot by not knowing all of this until now, at this point, though, I faced a new question. Having the ethics code release function basically meant that online virtual sex had been planned with the release of the game. But SAO had so many underage players, such as myself, no matter how I thought about this function.
What are
This
you
was going to
thinking?
cause a lot of social outcry. While
What?
teasing Asuna's cute slit with my fingertips, I raised my head and posed that
Thank
very
God,
question
coffee.
to her.
What?
What? Though she had spaced out in her silky eyes, and her answer was punctuated by heavy breathing, Asuna's serious disposition kicked in as she answered me. They plan to use SAO's system in order to provide a personal sex service? Were probably linked with that function? Ah, I see. In other words, it's probably one of those delicate arrangements. Well, enough with the chit-chat. I used my left hand to open Asuna up as wide as possible. Yes? I used my left hand to open up Asuna as wide as possible. She wasn't immobilized anymore, but Asuna let out a sweet cry with both of her legs spread wide in the air. I brought my face close and gently pushed my tongue towards the little hole in the center. Asuna shook her head side from side as she cried out. I softly stimulated the entrance to that hole with my tongue as I pushed my finger in and out. No, not that. Every time Asuna convulsed, a large amount of fluid would make a sticky sound on my tongue as it leaked out of her vagina. I wish I had a bowl of macaroni and cheese to stir here, but...
Yeah.
Asuna, can I... Asuna nodded vigorously as she let out a hot breath. Yes, make me fall with your thing, Kirito. Feeling slightly dizzy at the thought of having that straight-laced, invincible warrior tell me that with such a tearful face, I pressed myself against Asuna's moistness. My penis caught the entrance of her vagina as I moved it up and down. Asuna firmly gripped my shoulders with her arms, and she squeezed her eyes closed and furrowed her eyebrows. Even in the pale blue darkness of the room, I could see that her whole body was flushed, and beads of sweat shrined everywhere. When I placed my hands at Asuna's sides, her hips moved slightly forward. I felt a slight resistance, but with a popping sensation. Half of my penis was swallowed up inside of Asuna. Even just that, Asuna let out a scream as she arched her body to its limit. At that same time, my breath caught, and I felt a numbness spreading from my penis to the rest of my body.
Nice.
Having pushed my entire length into asana, I let my desires take over as I continued to penetrate her bit by bit.
I imagine that length to penetrate is like folded out like a yo-yo
She vigorously
Part 7.
shakes her head while her body shook. Although I briefly wondered if
Where is it like within brackets and also
no
have like small
longer
pictures
able to
next to them?
stop my hips from moving as my penis continued to plunge into asana's deepest parts with a wet, slapping noise.
Nice.
You
There's
sound like a Poplio clapping.
Eventually, my penis pushed all the way into the root of Asada's vagina.
The root?
While
Root?
she was
The root.
into the roots of Asada's vagina. While she was the woman whom I knew the best and loved the most. The crazy thought that I was deep inside Einkrad's top idol at this
Idol?
moment
What?
was spinning around in my
What the hell's
eyes, making me go crazy. I somehow managed to calm my breathing as I put my mouth close to Asana's ear and said, "It's all inside. All of it. All of it. Does it hurt?"
He sounds like fucking Nathan.
No, so hot. I'm going to melt. Asana answered me a thin, high voice as she shook her head. Kirito, so much of you. It's massive. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's bigger than that sword in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It's so long and thick.
I love you,
I also felt like melting from the incredible heat I was experiencing. My penis, which was tightly gripped by Asuna, was continuously
My only repertoire is
waves
Skeletor,
up
essentially.
my back that exploded into fireworks in my head. I was aware of Asuna's moans becoming higher and higher as I was immobilized, struggling against the sensations that threatened to overwhelm me, as if in anticipation her slits also continued to tightly massage me with its convulsions.
I request
no
that
way.
next time he
Again.
does the
Again.
you do it as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Cutter.
Asuna's voice, which sounded
Get a bowl of
as if
macaroni
it
and
was
stir.
becoming delirious from the heat, was changing into a meltingly sweet sound. And no, again, I'm coming again and again. I just can't stop. It feels so good, Kirito. It's incredible. I've never felt so much pleasure in my life. She threw her head back with a jerk and screaming loudly. Asuna climaxed for the 11th time. And at the same time, my penis was squeezed with an incredible pleasure. And to my horror, I felt a raging sense boil up inside me, seeking release. Exclamation point! I bit my lip and fought against that feeling, supported by the thought that I couldn't relax when we hadn't even recuperated once. Or reciprocated? I don't even understand this sentence. What does this mean? Supported by the thought that I couldn't relax when we hadn't even reciprocated once. Does that mean that he's upset that she came and he didn't?
I think they're trying to describe the mechanical action of what's happening here.
Okay, I was somehow able to quell the urge. Panting heavily, I embraced Asuna's body, which was limp from just insane amounts of orgasms. Like, you can't even imagine. She was just totally, basically dead.
She's on the
from the amount
She's
of
on the
orgasm she has sustained. I knew I didn't have much time left, so I violently pulled all the way back to the opening of her vagina before pushing in all the way in one thrust. Smack! It's a smack. I can't even smack this table as hard as this
Top
smack.
10 anime battles.
Our bodily fluids flew about.
What?
Asuna's eyes flew open as she let out a shriek. No, if you do that, I'm gonna go crazy. ... I was once again forced to stop while deep inside of Asuna. The hot, soft sensation surrounding me as the throbbing of the folds penetrated my entire being. Asuna had come like 32 times already, and if we'd stayed like this, I would eventually end up coming. But I didn't feel like that would be a very good way to finish.
No.
Okay.
You wouldn't?
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
not.
So after thinking for a moment about how to handle this situation, it required careful, precise planning that only my mind could figure out. I gently began shifting my body. Lifting up in a drowsy-looking Asuna's body, I moved underneath. Eventually, the two of us switched positions with me on my back and Asuna in a mounted position on top of me. As soon as Asuna realized what sort of position she was in, her face turned even redder as she shook her head from side to side.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is embarrassing. Asuna, you try. What? Oh, okay. Asuna blushed shyly as she nodded and began to rock her body. I'm sorry that I'm the only one feeling good, Kirito. I know no one can satisfy you, but I'm trying my best. I know I've climaxed over 52 times and you haven't even come once, but I'm so sorry. I know. A sticky sound was coming from the slit that was being pierced by my penis. Asuna's movements were minimal, but the powerfully numbing feeling was spreading through my body again. Right when I thought, at this rate, I'm going to come right away. Her voice was once again mixed with the sound of arousal. Asuna bit down on the fingers of her right hand as she moved her hips up and down. Oh, why am I like this? Asuna's long chestnut-colored hair flew into the air every time she shook her head. Beads of sweat.
I want to point out that is actually the line of dialogue she says. Why am I like this?
Yeah, that wasn't me extemporaneously speaking.
Yeah, no, like
beads of sweat also flew about.
So it's not even Bloodnose's own script reading.
Turning into light before disappearing. I'm sorry, Kirito. I'm coming again for the 74th time. It's coming again. I'm coming. Asuna threw her body back while drawing out the last part of her sentence as she violently convulsed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
87.
7, about 352 times. And her breasts, which were awesome, were sticking out in front of her and danced in time with these motions. I was in no position to pause and admire the sight of Asuna with her eyes scrunched closed and her teeth gritted together, looking incredibly
fingers.
and yet horribly lewd. Horribly lewd.
Did you actually say that were awesome about the breasts?
No, that was my addition.
Hunter, the entire script is in the NSFW channel if you want to see it.
As Asuna's vagina gripped my penis tightly, I was once again assaulted with the powerful urge to come. Thinking that I wouldn't be able to resist it this time, I instinctively pushed up into Asuna's core with a band, grabbing her hips with my hands. I shoved my hard penis as far as I could before pulling out again. Being suddenly assaulted right after coming out. Yes.
We're almost done.
Being suddenly assaulted and right after coming, all Asuna could do was frantically writhe about. I took her hand, which was extended towards me, and linked our fingers together. Every time I stirred up Asuna's insides, our overflowing juices would fly all about the place of our joining, melted in an endless heat. Amazing. Her bouncing breasts also sent large amounts of sweat flying all about the room. Asuna was letting out deliriously sweet moans with a completely melted look on her face. I'm come. Yes, let it out. Kirito, let it all out. As I shoved myself into Asuna, I released all of the pent-up sensations that I had stretched to the limits. Asuna, I could feel my hot sperm gushing deep into Asuna as she trembled in yet another climax. Thousands upon thousands of climax. This was 2 years worth of semen making a glopping sound. Glopping noise as it flowed endlessly into Asuna. Every time my penis twitched, fireworks would go off in my head. After receiving all that I had to give her, Asuna's strength gave out as she fell on top of me. I gently embraced Asuna while she continued to gasp and convulse in her 314,000th orgasm as she was stimulated by my fluids alone, so potent that they continued to give her more orgasms inside her body, and my consciousness dimmed.